was going through some old parts and I found this old ignition switch, and before I toss it or dismember it for parts, I thought I would go over a couple of issues that happen with actual ignition switches that will cause your bike not to come on or work properly. Some things that I've kind of encountered over several different ones that I've had to deal with. So I'm going to show you how this one works, and it'll probably be pretty much the same for most others, but I'll show you this one. So the first problem with this one is that someone lost the key and they chose to just hack it with an angle grinder, and presumably were starting their bike with a screwdriver, which you can do. This part is concealed, so I guess if you didn't know that you could use a screwdriver, I guess it's just as good as a key or anything. But this one also has the fork lock here, and so when you turn the key far enough, you can see that this comes out and it goes back in. Now some of them have a second one. Instead of it being on the ignition itself, it's actually a separate lock that's up under the forks, but it does the same thing. When you turn that, it basically is like a deadbolt, so that's how that works. Alright, so a common problem has to do with this little cap. This part's metal, this part's plastic. It has these little slots in here. They're kind of, you'll usually have 2 or 3. But what happens is, over time, through vibration and because of age and wear, these little feet, I'll try to get it where you guys can see it, they wear out. And when they wear out, they don't hold the bottom of this in tightly. And that's a problem because of the way that it works under here. So while I'm here, before I go on a little further, you'll notice that in here is like a little keyway, and it's actually a specific shape. You probably can't really tell. It's got a little nub down here on the bottom. Maybe you can tell a little better on this part. But this part engages with that. All right, so how this works is you have this part with these little, they don't move much. They do move a little bit. These little ball bearings. And you have to push the key in because that pushes those ball bearings away from these little indentations and makes it easier to turn that. It doesn't turn the whole thing, but it does turn this part. So when you push down on that, it's enabling this to spin. Now, why is that important? It's important because we get up under here. All right, I'm gonna take this apart, and you'll see that there are little copper connections here. These are filthy. This is another reason that you can have poor performance, is because if they get corroded and you're not making contact, you won't have your current going through. So what's inside this are these little copper connections, and that allows different connections to be made depending on which points are bridged. That's why if you turn your key maybe forward, you get your running lights and you can start it, but you can't take the key out. Or you can turn it backwards and it will leave your running lights on, but you can take the key out. So like if you had to leave your bike on the side of the road, but you didn't want somebody to run over it in the dark. So that's how that happens, is because these little copper connections are bridged. This one has a black that goes to the fuse box. Your red is going to go to your starter relay. You've got these 2 solid browns. These are going to go to your gauge cluster for your dash lights. And then you've got this one with a stripe. This goes to your tail light so that your running light works in the back. All right, inside this little bit, and these will stay in, they won't fall out. But on the back, you've got these little bits right here. And these are also little copper bits. And there's a little spring in there that keeps the connection tight. So underneath, you've got these little nubs, and they correspond to these. So you may have these engaged or not engaged, or bridged or not bridged. Same thing over here. It's going to depend on where you have this. And this one actually go this way. It'll maybe bridge these. It might bridge these. So if you do take this apart, and God forbid you take it apart and things fly everywhere, you have to have these little pieces. It won't work without it. So when you take these little guys out, right here, if I can get it right there, right there is a little nub, and this little nub sits on top of this spring that sits inside this hole, which is kind of convenient because it doesn't just like fly out, the spring anyway. So you have to get this in here in the right position for that little nub to sit on top of the spring, and also for these connections to face the right direction, because if they don't, you either won't connect anything or you'll connect the wrong things, and so you'll turn the key and something funky will happen and you'll be trying to figure out why. That also is going to be the case if you take this out to service it. Like I said, you're going to put a little tiny bit of lubricant on here where everything slides together, and it gets kind of gross over time. It gets dirt in there and it gets sticky and greasy. It's nasty. So if you clean everything up, you have to get this back into this in the right position. Before I took it apart, if I didn't already know how this went and this was together, I would take maybe a silver Sharpie, because this is black, and I would draw a line, and so that way when I put it back together, I would know exactly what position that went in. If something happens and you didn't do that and you're like, oh man, no, I don't know, I'll show you how to figure that bit out. All right, so I took my little guts out here so they don't get lost and stuff. So you'll see on the sides these little recesses, okay? And you've got your little feet here. On this one, it has 3 feet. They're different widths, which is very, very convenient, because you'll line them up with the corresponding ones. So you got 2 wide ones here and a narrow one there, 2 wide ones here, a narrow one there. This one would go in this way. That's the only way that it'll work, because it only turns about this far, and that acts as a lock. It doesn't like go past this. It just, that's the light movement that it's got to move those connections. All right, so that's basically how everything goes together. So if you need to take yours apart, clean the connections very carefully. Don't lose the little pieces. Use lubricant very sparingly, because it just takes a little bit. It just needs a little bit to kind of break the friction there between those plastic pieces sliding together in there. So again, if you have one where your bottom doesn't stay on tight, everything inside is fine, you can use these little bolt holes if you happen to have these, and you'll take your piece of pipe strapping, put your bolt through it, and then put it up there, screw one side in, push your top up, get it as tight as you can around there, put your bolt in through the other side, and when you tighten it up, it'll pull that pipe strap up and it'll keep the bottom on that, and your key switch will work again. As always, thanks for watching. So get out there and find another Ran One part.